It's never going to be the same, family. The cost of new things is the old. In order for you to move into the new, you got to let go of the old. And it will never be the way it was. People are going to come to your psychedelic experiences saying, I want to be the way I was 10 years ago. That's a trap. You're never going to be the way you were 10 years ago.
Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration. Leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach podcast, Todd Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
Welcome back to the podcast. You already know this is the Psychedelic Coach podcast. Today's episode is taken from our live event last week, and it's all about safety. Todd's going to talk about safety as not just a concept, but how it is profoundly important when it comes to your own healing journey, someone else's, supporting someone else's. And the most common thing we hear at our trainings is that people didn't realize the depth or the different ways they were unsafe. So this is the fundamental place to start. Let's get it in. Today is all about safety with Todd.
So safety, and this is something that we're going to talk about all the time. Safety, 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 safety. Any psychedelic experience, if you don't feel safe, let somebody know. If you don't feel safe with a facilitator or a person that you're leaning into, walk in the other direction or run. If somebody's trying to squeeze you into something and your body is an absolute no, don't do it. Okay. I've seen time and time again, Cole and I have had to support people in repairing a lot of stuff that was done going into spaces where people were doubting themselves. So make sure you're in a safe space. So what is safety? Now we have all these different contexts, right? And so when I ask somebody, are you feeling safe? And they say yes, I may not know what they're talking about. They said they were safe. I didn't know. And so this is where you start to dial into yourself. Now, about a year ago, I introduced this concept to the Condor approach, and we had 80 people in this room, and it shut the entire room down because most people didn't know that they weren't actually feeling entirely safe in all aspects of themselves. So I want you to take a deep breath and exhale. If you can breathe like that, if you can take a breath like that, chances are you're in some semblance of safety. If you're not safe, you're not going to be able to take a deep breath like that. Okay, so you can always take it back to your breath. So safety isn't a mere concept. It will profoundly impact everything about your journey, because when we are safe, that is when we heal. That's when we can relax. For us at the Condor approach, and I want you to write this down, safety is freedom from hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, and pain. Now, I want you to write it down because I want your body to actually remember this context. And there's something to be reading something, saying something, and actually writing it down so that your physicality, so that your body can actually integrate with what's going on. Now, you don't have to agree with this, but you can understand. I want you to understand where I'm coming from with this, okay? And it will make more sense as we move forward. Hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, pain. Now, some people will argue with me and be like, hurt and harm, isn't that the same thing? They're close. They're not the same thing. But when you exclude one of those, somebody else's word space may miss something. Because I can be hurt inside without being physically harmed. Okay? And so there's a difference. Does this make sense? Okay, cool. I call this the 7 attributes of violence. Okay? And you'll start to see a logo like this or something like this as I write things and put things in a portal. 7 AV. I like to call it 7th Avenue, right? And then we have a train stop on the Q train in Brooklyn called 7th Avenue. 7th Avenue, the 7 attributes of violence. 7 attributes: hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, pain. And I will say these things over and over again. Violence is anything that disrupts wholeness. Violence is anything that disrupts wholeness, wholeness of your physical body, wholeness of your relationships, wholeness of your identity as a human being, wholeness of your family structure, your relationship with your kids. If you get a nick on your skin, your wholeness has been interrupted. And so I'm inviting you to remove judgment from violence. Remove judgment, good or bad. It's violence. Okay? Sometimes violence is necessary. When you see a fly laying in a spider web, what's going to happen? It's violence, right? It's going to be violent. The spider's going to come out, going to grab the fly, it's going to inject it with some poison, it's going to wrap it up, going to take it down into the web, and it's going to eat, right? And so violence is violence is violence. It's not a good or a bad thing. And I want to remove that context of good or bad from violence. It is violent. Okay? If I have a target and I'm doing archery and I pull back that U and I let that arrow go, it's going to hit the target. It's going to disrupt the integrity of the target as the arrow goes into the target. It is violence. Does this make sense? Okay. Now, I really want this to land with y'all. Remove the judgment from violence and just see it for what it is. Then you can actually get into the what instead of the why. Why did this person hurt me? Why? No, this person did this violent act to me. Am I going to change what I'm doing, or am I going to continue doing what I'm doing with this situation? How am I going to navigate it? Is this helpful? Okay. Now, can you think of any ways that you are unsafe in your life right now, where you're experiencing hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, and pain? Now, deficit, people are like, how is that violent? Well, if I don't have enough and I don't perceive I'm enough, my identity is not whole anymore. And that becomes disrupted. Does this make sense? Okay. So if somebody tells me I'm stupid and I start to doubt myself, my idea of myself as a smart person has been interrupted. That is not whole anymore. That is violent. When somebody calls you stupid or ugly or whatever they call you, that's outside of your belief structure of what you are, or your knowledge base of what you are as an individual human being, is disruptive to you as an individual. If I say, oh, those people over there are stupid, I'm actually being violent towards those people. That country is ridiculous. Without understanding or knowing everything that's going on, I am actually being violent towards that situation. And so when we understand these things, we can dive into the self and see where safety is. And this is why we say that violence is not welcome here as far as attacking other people. Now, if somebody's coming at you and you put up a blockade, you're rescuing yourself, right? You're saving yourself from something else. That's perfectly welcome. And attacks on other people, no go here. Cool? Are we good with that? Is this helpful? Is this context helpful? Cool. All right. So this is the lead into what's going on with us here. So anytime there's violence, guess what happens? Trauma. I'm not going to ask you what trauma is, because I'm sure all of you have a different idea and a rendition of what trauma is. At the Condor approach, trauma is a creative response to violence and disruptions to wholeness. It's a response. And you can live in the response of trauma all the time. Okay, it can become a habit. Trauma is designed within us as we move along. There are foundational spaces, but it's designed as we move along. It's designed into the body, it's designed into the organism. And there are hormones associated with it. There are body postures that are associated with it. There are behaviors that are associated with it. And if we stay in those behaviors and all of those things over and over again, the body fashions itself around the traumatic response. Now, if if a parent comes in a room and smacks a child all the time, the kid's going to get used to doing this, right? This. Or if the parent is disruptive, the kid may lean away from the parent. It's a trauma response. Now, I've seen people with severe scoliosis, severe S-shaped curve in the spine. And I always ask them, who's the parent you spent the most time with? Oh, my mother. Oh, cool. How was your relationship with your mother? Oh, I couldn't stand my mother. Body takes a posture. Okay. And so these are things that I want you to consider. It's not all scoliosis, some scoliosis. These are things you question, you ask when you're doing an intake on yourself or the people around you. Why is my body doing this? I see whole families with their shoulders rolled in like this, right? Closing off the heart, hiding, this type of situation, rounded out back. These are trauma responses that we learn, and we can pass these on to our children. Our children will watch and they will learn to guard themselves in these ways. These can be traumatic responses and things that we live in. Does this make sense? Okay. I want to just start moving you into a space of understanding what we're navigating when we talk about violence, when we talk about safety. There's always a response in the background. Trauma protects and it prepares. Two of those P's, okay? Trauma protects you from, prepares you for violence. And if you're always protecting yourself, you're always in a trauma response because trauma's coming. Something's coming to disrupt you from wholeness. Does this make sense? Is this landing? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. Okay. So trauma is the creative response to violence and disruptions to wholeness. Loss, hurt, harm, loss. Now, loss is related to all grief. Anybody that's in a grieving space, they have lost something or they're perceiving that they're going to lose something. And so there's a disruption in the relationship space. How I relate to something, how I relate to someone. Now, some of you know from following me on social media that one of my greatest friends in the world passed on January 18th. I am. Thank you. You're witnessing a person in a grieving space. Okay. I've known this man since 1985. We went to high school together. I was in a hip hop group called Absolute Value. He was the DJ. My whole life is influenced by this man. And I watched him die a pretty heinous death. In this picture, he's probably around 240 pounds. He was like 80 pounds when he passed. And so my grieving space includes all of the identities I have with him, all of the things we've done together, all of the things we've created together, the music we've done together, the touring we did together. When I didn't see my daughter until she was 2.5 years old. And the first time I saw my daughter, I had a rubber band rope chain that he helped me to make, right? Like he's built into so many aspects of me. And so when he passed, everything was disintegrated with that. And so my body is acclimating, my psyche, my emotional complex is acclimating to the world without Dom, physically. Right? Like I know him ideologically and the concept of him, but I'm grieving that. And so the loss process is a space where I am, every time, like I just looked at this picture and immediately, because I'm grieving that space, I can't pick up the phone and reach out and call him. And so this is where we start to understand that loss triggers grief. Grief is a trauma response. And so when you're working in psychedelic spaces and you come back new, your family may be grieving you the way you were before. You may be grieving the relationship you had with other things and people, the old shit that you stuck to, the limiting beliefs that you had, the structures around your emotions and stuff. You may be stuck in those spaces. And then when you have a psychedelic experience, it shakes things up and it's like, I'm brand new. And it's like, okay, this is great. And then a couple of weeks later, the grief sets in because you have now moved into a different space. And so grieving is a natural thing. We have to become new. We are always becoming new. And there are micro griefs, macro griefs, and extreme griefs. This is an extreme grief. Big deal for me. And does this make sense? Just want to check in, just want to dial in. Is this helpful? Okay, this context is very important because in the psychedelic space, people talk a lot about what kind of death? Ego death. Okay. Your ego is a structure that's there to keep you safe and have all of these foundational things. And when people are looking to kill their egos off, you're going to grieve. Okay. And your ego is going to grieve. And the other relationships in your life are going to grieve. This is a violent space. It's violent because it disrupts something. Capiche? Capiche. Good. Cool. That's Italian. All right. So my clicker is spazzing out. All right. So the importance of safety, right? Remember, safety is a moment of now thing. It's often confused with security, which is a future projection of safety, right? Security is a future projection of safety. I will be safe next week. I have this insurance policy, so if something happens, I will be safe later. Meanwhile, right now, I'm on fire because I'm not feeling safe. How many people have experienced this? Thank you for sharing. Me too. Okay. I have not been outside of the space of looking for security while I am in momentary unsafe conditions. But yeah, I'm still grinding because I'm going to do all of these things. But right now, I'm not safe. It is very moment of now. So when I ask you, are you safe? I'm not talking about next week. I'm talking about right now. Are you safe? And this is one thing that I want you to all be able to check in, these 3 words. Am I safe? And ask it out loud and see what your body tells you. And this is a space that people get very dissonant in. They don't ask themselves. Walk into a room and something feels weird. Ask yourself, am I safe? And I take a deep breath. Am I safe? At that Condor approach in February, somebody said, can you ask that? I was like, yes, please ask that. Am I safe? Are you safe? Are you safe? Oh, I thought somebody asked me something. Okay, cool. So what is vulnerability? This is a word that gets thrown around right now in all of the coaching spaces, online, vulnerability coaches. What's vulnerability? Open heart. What else? Room for possibilities. Exposure. Authenticity. Connection. Courage to be seen and known. Perfect. For us at the Condor approach, vulnerability is being open with possibility. Sincere said. It is being open with possibility. Vulnerability is not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It is open with possibility. Please stop judging your language. Let that go. Good or bad, right or wrong, it's open with possibility. And so possibility for change, possibility for growth, for connection, for fun, for pleasure, for learning, for mutuality, for expansion. It's also possibility for the 7 attributes of violence: hurt, harm, loss, deficit, injury, death, pain. You are open. And so who knows what's going to come in? And so this is why vulnerability can feel unsafe, because you can be hurt. But if you're only closed off to prevent hurt, you're still preventing yourself from all of the awesome from coming in. And learning how to create filters and boundaries for yourself is tremendously important. And this is because possibility is always uncertain. Certainty is security for the future. All I have is right now. And right now, I know that I am safe in this very moment. Am I going to be safe? I don't know. Yesterday morning, I was here teaching in the morning, teaching the coaches. And before that, I smashed my head wide open. Right? I have a laceration on my head. I was in my closet. I dropped my watch on the floor, bent down to pick it up, and smashed my head. Didn't know I was going to be unsafe. Didn't know there was going to be violence, but there was. So there's always uncertainty with possibility. And that possibility, what happened yesterday, left me open for a teaching moment and for an experience in my life, and for me to have a very huge opening with my wife, who held amazing space for me as I dissociated into some really weird spaces yesterday. This is open for possibility. And if we close ourselves off to just pain, we leave ourselves closed off to everything else. If we close ourselves off to just pleasure, we leave ourselves closed to pain as well. And this is a part of the full spectrum of our lives. Nice deep breath. Incremental. We're moving into some spaces here. Go to page 6 in your book. That wire-bound book that you got. Go to page 6. Hey, everybody. We're going to talk about a concept called the 3 Ps. This is a concept that Cole came up with, and it is one of the most popular concepts that we have in the Condor approach. It is foundational. It is a bedrock space. Pause, pull back, and physical scan. If you want to know where you are, what's going on with you, it's Cole's hair. You pause, right? If anything's going on, we want you to pause. In that pause, take a breath. Am I safe? You pull back. You get the Condor's eye view. What's going on around me? I'm pulling back, taking a look, and then I'm doing a physical scan to see what's going on with me. What's happening with me? What am I experiencing? Not just what am I feeling, what am I experiencing? And that's a question you can ask yourself. And you want to write that down. It's something to ask yourself and other people. Yeah, yellow alert. Yeah, it's going to be a tornado. Yeah. Oh, amber alert. How dare you apologize? That's not allowed here. No apologies. I am sexy is the only thing that you could say. You good. Listen, if there's an alert, there's an alert. Things happen. Shit, I like to say shit happens in a toilet bowl. Flush, wipe, wash your hands, and keep it moving. Okay. So pause, pull back, physical scan. This is not just if you're feeling awkward. This is for any circumstances going on with you. If you walk into an amusement park and you feel amazing, we want you to pause, pull back, take a physical scan, and be present with yourself. This is the gateway to feeling and seeing everything that's going on in Condor. Anytime you have a challenging space, pause, pull back, physical scan, and then proceed with what's going on. In psychedelic experiences, people will get overwhelmed. And what Cole would tell people, hey, pause, pull back from what's going on, and just scan yourself. What are you experiencing in your body? What are you experiencing in your mind? And the person can become more aware. You can become more aware of yourself. This is a space for you to use to bring awareness into yourself. So you will hear us speak about the 3 Ps all the time. Pause, pull back, physical scan. And in that physical scan, it can be just a real brief scan, or you can lay down in your bed and do a full body scan. One of the most challenging things I've practiced and explored is a full body scan, going from my toes all the way at my feet into my ankles, into my calves, my shins, my knees, my hips, all the way up through every part of my body. And it is one of the most challenging things to stay fully present in, with my mind the way it drifts into all kinds of spaces. So when I do a physical scan, I can feel where I'm holding tension in my body, what the story is around the tension, what do I need to do? I can ask all these questions. Cool? Breath. Does anybody have any questions around what I've covered so far? Wonderful. No questions. Any comments? Anything come up for anybody? Wow. Let's go for it. There's a microphone right there.
Peace, everybody. I would just like to say thank you. That section on violence at the dinner at the chefs, we had a very, very interesting conversation last night. And I think that all of us, including myself, have held some misunderstandings on what violence is. And that presentation, I think, brought about a equilibrium. And so I really appreciate that. That was something very important for me to walk right back into. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for expressing that. Sincere, how many times have you been in a Condor Coach?
This is my 5th or 6th.
Fifth or sixth.
I think this is my 5th.
5th time.
Yes.
So every time you come, you learn something new.
Every time.
This is what it's about. And so these concepts, thank you. So these concepts and the way we present them are evolving. They're evolving as we evolve as individuals and a collective of people in the Condor approach. We're learning in these spaces. I am also learning. And so as these things move through me, I share them, and then we can tie these things together even more. And that's the power of the Condor approach, is because we're constantly evolving into a new space. This is not some indoctrinated space of this is how it goes and it doesn't change. We're always growing, y'all. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. I'm always welcoming perspectives like that. So the foundation of the Condor approach is what we call the 4 ins process. 4 ins for integration, okay? This whole process is the process of integration. Intake, intention, in space, integration. Okay, and this is in your book. Intake, intention, in space, integration. Intake is when you do an inventory on yourself, where someone does an inventory on you. And so what you're doing is you're actually collecting data and looking at the data on yourself, asking yourself questions that you may not have asked yourself. My intake form for my private clients is about 46 pages long. And I'm asking you everything from what your medical history is. Do you have tattoos? Do you like your tattoos? What's your relationship to your tattoos? Have you been exposed to crop dusting? Have you eaten lead paint? I'm asking everything that I possibly can because I'm stirring the pot and bringing information to the surface. Yeah. And so when you have psychedelic experiences, sometimes there's things that are so deeply buried that the psychedelics have to go in and move stuff out of the way to let stuff up. When you stir the pot already, the psychedelics don't have to work too hard. And I attribute this to why Cole and I have never had anybody have a bad trip with us, because we've stirred the pot beforehand and all the information has come to the surface. Cole has one. Did you do an intake process on that person? Okay. So, well, we haven't had one like that together. Juntos. That's Spanish. So intention is the next space. Okay. And in that we include, what do you want to know? Okay. And write this down. What do you want to know? It might be in your book. What do you want to know? What do you want to do? Who or what do you want to be? And what do you want to understand from your experience in life? In space is the space of the acute transformation, the acute experience. Acute meaning right now, not chronic, which is long-term. Right now, the acute transformational space. Right now, you are in space. This is an acute transformational space. Integration is, how do you take what you've gotten from your intake process, your intention setting, and being in the space of expansion, and how do you apply that to your day-to-day life and your environment? And your environment is not just the place where you are, it is the people you interact with. Your environment is not just the place where you are, it's the people you interact with. Your environment is not just the place where you are, it's also the people you interact with. We as human beings are products of our environment. And that includes the people around you. Why am I just, I grew up, I never wanted to be like my mom, but I see I'm just like my mom. It's your environment. You're a product of it. And so the places you put yourself will influence you, just like this. This is a place that you've put yourself. This is influencing you. You are becoming a product of this environment. And so this is why we want you to contribute to the environment. I'm not a guru. I'm not interested in being your guru or your leader. I'm interested in being in this with you. I want to be a product of you like you're a product of me. We're all one. You have gifts that I don't have, and I would love to utilize that. I would love to support that. I'd love to be a part of that. So this is what we call the integration wave, and we introduced this the last Condor approach, and it looks like this. Intake, you go up the slope to your intention, you get into your space, slide down into integration. This is the integration wave. And this visual depiction has been very helpful with my one-on-one clients. They're like, oh, that makes plenty of sense. Makes even more sense when you look at it like this. Intake, intention, in space, integration. Intake, intention, in space, integration. Intake, intention, in space, integration. You do this very quickly without paying attention. This integration wave is actually slowed down so you can actually be intentional and see what's going on. So this is where we say integration is not optional. It's always happening, but how you integrate is an option. So you slow down, you pinch and you expand and you look at the integration wave. So when you get up in the morning, you walk into the bathroom, you got this armada of products on your sink. You go in, maybe you, I don't know, go in, grab the toothbrush, turn it on, or just use the manual, put some toothpaste on it, wet it, whatever, brush your teeth, spit it out, and you go about your day. Now, there was an integration process there. Okay? What am I going in there for? I'm going on with the intention to wash my mouth out. Why? What do I want to know? What do I want to do? I want to wash the bacteria out of my mouth. Maybe I want to get rid of the halitosis. What's my intention? I'm in an intention space, whether I realize it or not. Okay? And so I can do an intake on it. Man, my toothbrush looks gunky. How many times have y'all had the 6-month toothbrush? I'm guilty, right? The 6-month toothbrush, and you're just brushing past, you're just going past the whole thing. But when the intention is to actually clean your mouth and you have a funky toothbrush, it's counterproductive, right? And so you slow down and you do an intake on the toothbrush, right? And then my intention is to clean my mouth, so I'm going to get a new toothbrush. And then I go into a transformational space and I go to the store and I buy a new toothbrush. And then I go home and I brush my teeth And then I integrate that with my day-to-day life. When I get to the dentist's office and they're like, you have no cavities, I was intentional. Does this make sense? This can be applied to anything in your life. You're always doing this. When you're going to have a conversation with anybody in here, I invite you to be in a space of doing an intake on yourself. What am I feeling? That person's hat looks awesome. I want to go say something about the hat. Why do I want to say? What's making me want to do that? And then you say, okay, what would my intention be to go speak to that person? I just want to be friendly. Okay, my intention is to gain a new friend. And then I go over and I say hello. And they say hello. Hey, I'm not really interested in speaking right now. Oh, okay. You're in the space. Now you have a different feeling. What do you do with that in that space? You're transforming. Maybe you have rejection issues. All of these things can come up in a moment, but you can slow down and evaluate all that. And then how do you carry that into the next moments in your life? This is going on all the time under the radar. We're always integrating. Always. You're integrating new information right now. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. It's up to you. So this is the frequency of life. And when we look at vibrational tones, we can have short integrations and we can have high vibrational spaces. Okay. And so is this helpful? Cool. So the intake process is the front end. The integration is the back end. Okay. We always start on the front end with intake, and the back end is integration. And then integrating with my technology. The back end becomes the front end. As you integrate, you do a new intake process. And so you're constantly doing this. All my NLP people in here know that there are three things that the brain does. We delete, distort, and generalize. And so we move things out of the way that are not pertinent in a moment, but the brain is still processing all of these things. And so we're always integrating. Are you aware of what you're integrating? That's the important question here. Are you aware of what's going on with you? This is the integration wave. Does this visual representation support what's going on? Okay, cool. So we add water, we stir, and repeat over and over again. And this becomes a habit. And so when I walk into a room, I'm evaluating the room. I pause, I pull back, physical scan. I see what's going on. I feel into my body. I ask myself, am I safe? All of this stuff happens in real time because I've integrated this into my nervous system. And so I've also integrated the 4 Ns process into my nervous system. So I'm constantly surveying everything that's going on. When some of you have watched me coach other people, you're like, how are you doing that shit? Because I'm constantly in this space. My nervous system is so dialed into this process that it's on autopilot, and you can do this as well. Some of you are doing it. Some of you read me better than I read myself. And that's perfect. That's what I want. I want to be seen so that I can be supported, so that I know what's going on around me. And that may be frightening for some people. You don't have to be seen the way I am, right? I used to lie about everything in my life. Everything in my life was a lie. And I spent 99% of my life hiding from other people, being inauthentic, being disingenuine, being frightened, and my body took the shape of that. I couldn't lose body fat. I was in the gym 5-6 days a week, still tons of body fat, 25% body fat. It's ridiculous. I was toxic. My skin was inflamed. I had all these things popping up all over my body. It's crazy because I was holding on to information. And so I need to let things out so that I can allow things to come in. And the things that I allow to come in are other people, other experiences, and wonders in the world. Integration is not optional, y'all. How you integrate is optional. How you integrate is optional. Very important space. So what does all this have to do with psychedelics? Psychedelic experiences can disintegrate old habits from old experiences. They can pull those experiences apart. And when we pull those experiences apart, we are disintegrated. What do we do with that? How do we integrate that? What do we want to do with that? Okay. So leaving room for intentional integration is super important. It makes all the difference when you can make intentional integration the situation. So imagine you're at the beach, endless sand, and you want to make something. So you start bringing sand together, but it doesn't seem to be able to pack into a sandcastle. What do? You pause, pull back, do a physical scan, see if this is what you want to be doing. And then how am I going to make this sand get packed? What would I do? Get water, right? What if I didn't know that? mommy, daddy, brother, sister, friend, what do I need to do to make this happen? I go integrate with that person and I ask them, I need help. So what do you need help for? My intention is to build a sandcastle. But every time the tide comes in, the wave comes in, is going to be disintegration. And so having skills and knowing how to build your sandcastle the way you want to build it, and knowing that even if you rebuild your sandcastle, it's never going to be the same, family. It's going to be new. And the cost of new things is I'm going to say that again. The cost of new things is the old. In order for you to move into the new, you got to let go of the old. And it will never be the way it was. People are going to come to your psychedelic experiences saying, I want to be the way I was 10 years ago. That's a trap. You're never going to be the way you were 10 years ago. And I love the idea that all things are possible. That is not possible. Not in one realm. If you want to hop to another realm, that may be a possibility. But if you're going to stay in this one three-dimensional realm, that's not it. And understanding how to build your sandcastle and getting creative with it and moving into new spaces is the cost of the old. Okay? Don't forget, how you integrate is optional. How you do it. And that's why you're here. You're here to learn about integration, y'all. Let's learn about integration.
Some things need to be healed in community, and we offer you something unparalleled with the Condor Approach Live. We're going to talk about how to prepare for, navigate, and integrate your psychedelic experiences for yourself or those that you love. These live events are catalysts. They really allow you to uncover and unleash the potential that you already have within you. When you're surrounded by like-minded people who are walking the walk and are committed to the path, you may even find your next facilitator or coach, but this event is designed to foster genuine relationships, give you community that supports and uplifts you, wants to see you win. If you've been wanting to embody this understanding and take these skills to a new level, then a live dynamic environment is just the way. You can go to thecondorapproach.com. That is thecondorapproach.com, and we will see you in February.
Integration is not optional.